Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be talking about trashed snowboards. What you can expect out of a full 100+ day season or multiple 100-day seasons with your boards. So every deck that we've got here is either something I used for product reviews, my personal stuff that I wrote, or I have used it in the past for reviews or riding it, and we're just going to break down how many days each one has and what kind of went wrong with it and why I feel they're clapped out or if they're still going strong. Now, I know for most of you, you're not in the situation that I'm in where I'm rotating bindings across multiple boards and I'm riding a lot of stuff, so I don't ride my own equipment. But these are the decks that I've put a lot of days on, and I just want to kind of break it down for you what you can expect from the gear. And it might surprise you, some of this stuff holds up better than you would think. So first up is my Telos Mike Ranquet. I rode this the most. I use this for binding review testing. It's a good all mountain freestyle board. I like the shape on it. It's perfect for riding park, cruising a groomer, smashing a little bit of pow, free ride if I have to. The big thing that I would say that happened with this board is that it lost its camber, and it's just totally broken in. It feels like a board that has a couple 100 days on it. It doesn't even have 100 days. I would say roughly this board probably has about 70-75 days on it. Overall, it really held up to destruction. The base has a couple little spots that could use some P-Tex fill, and it could probably use a stone grind, but other than that, it's fine. The sidewalls were amazing with that urethane. They just did not blow out if I hit any rocks or anything. And then the top sheet actually looks good underneath this vinyl sticker that I put on there. And the reason I put this vinyl sticker was people would see the graphic and they'd want to talk to me and just not shut the fuck up. So I would have to sit there and deal with it. Or I would come out of the lodge and people would be like pulling it off the rack, looking at it, putting it on the ground, stepping on it and shit if it wasn't locked up. And I'm like, I don't want that. Or my favorite was when it was actually locked up, they were trying to smash the lock so they could look at it better. And I'm like, yo dude, that thing's on there pretty damn tight. But by and large, this board did what I wanted it to do. I mean, there's like one little dinger in the nose that is a little pushed in, but it's cosmetic. Other than it losing its camber, which I kind of expected it to do, it held up totally fine. So this is my second lumberjack that I own. Nate from Marhar made me a custom graphic as a thank you for helping design this with him. I got a little chip taken out of the top sheet right outside the front binding. I got a little bit of binding rash. The base is actually immaculate on this. I only rode it, I think, 2 or 3 days last season. Total, this board probably only has 25 days on it, maybe 30, and it's immaculate. Like, I don't have to worry about it. It hasn't broken into the point that it's just limp and dead like my old lumberjack, which probably has 200 days on it. My friend Kyle is riding right now. And that board actually survived a house explosion. It was on the front porch of a house that literally had the gas blow up and it got ejected off the porch. It's got glass embedded in the nose of it in 2 spots on the base, but super durable. This thing lasts, I'll probably have this board for another 3 to 5 years would be my guess before it's clapped out at the rate that I'm not riding it as much as I probably should. This is my first year K2 Cool Bean, and I did a lot of binding reviews on this board. This board probably has the most days out of anything that I currently own. I'm gonna say it's probably close to 200, 250 days total on it. And it's got a small chip in the tail. So on the top sheet, you can see in the lighter section in the clear coat, it's got some stress cracks in there. That's all cosmetic. The sidewall has held up immaculately on this. There's no sections where it's actually de-lambing anywhere other than that small section on the tail. And I know exactly when that happened. I dropped it in the parking lot. It was a paved parking lot. There was a little pebble and it just hit it just right that it did it. I mean, I've got a few little top sheet sections that stick up. The base has about 2 areas that could use a little P-Tex in it. The only reason I'm retiring this is the torsional flex has gotten super soft on it. So when I first got it, it was super stiff, and now I can really torsionally twist it. At 250 days, this board owes me nothing. I think I paid 250 bucks for it through the rep for a promo deal. I was supposed to get the Mean Bean, which was a limited edition one of these. They sold out. I ended up with the regular Cool Bean. I didn't care because it was just a graphic difference. but I love the way that this thing rides, and even though it's clapped out, it'll become more of like a party board for the spring or the preseason. It's made it more butterable in the nose. It's just a little bit easier. I love riding park with this thing, actually. It's kind of fun to ride park with. But for binding review testing purposes, it's done. It's just gotten too soft. It's not giving me the performance that I would ideally want from it. But for most people that own a Cool Bean, in the time that I rode it to 200, 250 days, they probably won't even get to 100. This is a board that they will have for 10 years. And even though K2 doesn't make it anymore and they have the special effects replacing it, I really do love this deck. This is my 148 Telos Backslash, and this board probably has the second most amount of days out of anything I own, and it's clapped out. That rear backseat camber has gone almost completely flat. It just doesn't have the snap and rebound that it used to. The nose has like this weird mark where a screw or something, when it was in the stack of boards, pushed into it when I pulled it out. So it's got a bunch of top sheet scratches. Top sheet over here on the sidewall, I think it got hit in the lift line or something. It started to peel. There's some wear and tear along the tail from it just hitting trees, rocks, stuff like that. The base, it's got a couple spots that need to be filled. I got one little gouge right there in the base. Otherwise, this base is actually fairly strong. It's got surface scuffs to it, but the edges have stayed intact. Die cut didn't pop out. Realistically, a good tune job, this thing would look immaculate on the base. The big thing with this board is, like I said, the camber profile is just, it's deceased. It's so clapped out, it's so much more soft than when I got it. It rides squirrelier, it just doesn't hold the edge like it used to. But if I had to guess, this thing probably has about 100, 130 days on it. It's reached its lifespan for the paces that I put it through and how much I ride it. This is another board kind of like my Cool Bean that people that own it aren't going to be riding it every day. It's not going to be a board that they're going to get right away to 100 days. I could still ride it as a party board if I want to, but in my opinion, it just doesn't carve as well anymore just because it's been so clapped out. I don't get that power out of the tail. Cosmetically, I could clean this thing up and it would look fairly close to new. I mean, there's some surface scratches that aren't going to come out, but the base is still good. Edges are still good. This is my Rome Party Mod. I got it in a 153 because I just wanted a super soft, butterable board, and 54 has been my park size forever. Figured go down 1 centimeter versus going up 2 centimeters on it. I could have gotten away with the 56, but whatever. I got this just to be like a jib screw around board. It's got a small chip in the top sheet right under the front binding. The big thing was the first day I had it, I core shot the shit out of this thing, hitting a rock, cutting off a cat track to a run. There was some pow. I did a turn and it just happened to be a rock. My friend Jamie filled it. It's starting to pull again. It probably actually needs a base weld. It's so deep and bad. It's whatever. It's a park board. I don't really care. I'm going to run into the ground. I also have a dent in it from hitting a stump later in the season. I think this board probably has 20 to 30 days on it. If I can get another 30 to 40 out of it, I'll be very happy. I'm just going to run this thing into the ground. This is kind of like my personal board for screwing around, playing with my friends, hitting the park. I don't really care if I destroy it. That's why I bought it, was to just run it into the ground. I wanted it in a 53, and that's it. I mean, it is what it is. It's still got its pop. It hasn't clapped out on me, which is nice. Yeah, it's got that hole that's filled, but I don't really care. I don't notice that when I'm riding. The edges are still solid. This is my Endeavor Archetype 158. It's my favorite POW board. I really wish I was riding it more. We didn't get a lot of preseason to mid-season POW days before everything showed up for review, so I couldn't get out on it. Overall, I think this board maybe has 20, 25 days on it. It looks really good. There's one micro scratch on the base that could use a little P-Tex, and then there's a surface one that runs almost the full length of it, but it goes with the grain, so it's not affecting anything. I'm not worried about it. And then I've got one tiny chip on the sidewall where I think someone clanked me in the lift line. This board still has good camber, good pop, everything. I'll probably ride this about another 7,500 days before I'll consider it clapped out. It's my second one. My first one had been horribly abused, and my friend Steven is actually riding it still. We got it tuned up and he loves it, and for his ability level it's great. overall, not worried about this board, not going to replace it. So what are things you should be looking at with your snowboard to see if it's just done? Put it flat on a surface and push down on it and see what the camber profile looks like, whether it's reverse into camber, it's cam rocker, it's traditional camber, it's flat to rocker. Put it in there and look at it. So if it's camber, it's got multiple camber zones or whatever, put it flat and see if everything stays level on it. And if it was traditional camber, you want to make sure when you push down on it, it's got rebound. If it doesn't rebound a lot, it's probably clapped out. If it's got multiple camber zones, when you push on them, see if it does the same, but also look at the camber height, because I guarantee you the back camber zone will have broken in more than the front camber zone, so it's going to have a little bit less. That's the sign that it's starting to clap out. With a flat to rocker, you just look and see if the rocker and the tip of the tail is more or less exaggerated when you got it. Just that can tell you if it's starting to break in and push up, or it's breaking down and that rise in the rocker isn't as much as what it once was. If it also feels just super squirrely at speeds, things like that. Then go around the sidewall, look to make sure there's no little cracks in the edges, it's not pushed in, it's not recessed, it's not separating and stuff. With the top sheet, you're gonna get some binding rash and cosmetics. I wouldn't worry about that. Looking at the base, look at how many times you've had to fill that with P-Tex and how many times you've had to stone grind it. If you haven't stone ground your board yet, take it into a shop, tell them you want them to fill all the surface stuff and just resurface it, you know, put a little structure in there, you'll probably be fine. By and large, I think snowboards can last 100 or more days depending on how you ride and how much you take care of them. If you only have one board, you're riding it every single day for a whole season, yeah, it's probably gonna be clapped out at the end. But if you have multiple boards and you're kind of going through everything and you're rotating and you're not riding them as much, some of these boards will last you multiple seasons. I mean, that first year K2 Cool Bean is like 10 years old. That Telos Backslash is from the first year, and I put so many days on that. This board's going on 3 years old. That Rome Party mod was new last year. That Telos Ranquet, I actually rode it a lot at the end of the previous season, and I rode it all through that season. And like I said earlier in the video, that's a board I've ridden a lot. It's clapped out. I kind of expected it to, but overall, boards tend to last me multiple seasons just because I'm riding so many products out there that I don't have to worry about it. But I always do keep cognizant of where my boards are sitting inside, how much I'm riding them. Like that Marhar Lumberjack, I'm gonna have that for a few more years, but I've got to replace that Mike Ranquet. Just, I need a board for testing binding, so I'm gonna go to a ride shadow band this year. With my Backslash and my Cool Bean being my party boards, my fun volume shifted and they're both clapped out. I've got to replace that one again this year. I'm gonna ride that party mod into the ground. And then like this Endeavor Archetype, I'm not worried about it. This thing will last me, I'll probably have this for 3 to 5 more years, depending, unless I drill something aggressive and just blow it out, but still my favorite powder board. All right, so hopefully you learned what I consider trashed for my gear. It probably looks better than some people. It's like, I think people were thinking that the rails were gonna be falling off and it would be completely separated, but I just don't ride my stuff enough anymore to kill as many boards in one season so they last multiple seasons, and I'm not replacing them every single season like I was in my early to mid 20s. I've kind of slowed down as a rider. I'm not as aggressive, I know that. And I have multiple boards because, well, multiple conditions and the right tool for the job makes sense. For some of you out there, one board is all you're gonna have and you're gonna ride it until the rails fall off. By and large, I really only need to replace, it looks like, 2 snowboards this year. That's not bad. I don't have a problem with that. Hopefully you're learning what I consider trash, what you should be looking for out of this video. If you're new here, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing over here and you want to support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avran LeFeber, and I'll see you in another video.